On mic today, we have Noah Averbach-Katz. How are you doing today, fine sir?
I am doing really, really well. Excited to be here. Excited to get to talk to you, man. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. I got to tell you, I loved your performance on Star Trek Discovery. I love Discovery just because it tends to introduce these characters very slyly, and then you just absolutely fall in love with them. So that's becoming the show's trademark in my mind, if nobody else.
I love that trademark. That's really cool. I think they do a good job of just like sort of being like, "Oh, I'm so attached to this person and I like don't even really know how that even happened."
Yeah, exactly. It's like you think that they're going to be a bit part, a two-line character, and then it's like, oh wait, they're back in the next episode. Is this going
hmm
somewhere? And I'm not used to that, and I like this.
Yes, it's not the sort of like, you have your beginning, middle, end in one episode, although some characters do, but you're able to get to know people a little better, get to see other sides of people. I think I just watched Terraforming Part 2, and I think they do that with Carl really nicely, where you kind of he's not just like he's more than one thing, which I
Hmm.
think is just a lot of fun and add some depth. And it's also, as an actor, it's super fun to get to play. You get more room to kind of work your craft.
And I haven't watched Terraformer Part 2 yet. It just dropped today, and I like to wait till I can get cozy. I'm not one of those people that's
Oh,
like up at
sorry.
midnight.
Spoilers.
Uh,
Spoilers.
it's
Sorry.
cool. It's cool. If we know Carl is a couple different things, there's a bunch of things he could be, so that doesn't really count too much in my mind.
Yes.
Um, But yeah, you're getting to know the character. You get to own the character. What were
Yeah.
you given when you first got the script?
Gosh, I read the script and it went through a couple of changes. So like by the time I actually got on set, I had like, it's this thing where they sort of overwrite something and then pare it back. So they had overwritten it in a way where I really got to like see a little bit more who the character was. And,
Hmm.
and in a way where it's like, oh, I don't need to say all these extra lines. I could just play this. I can just like be
Hmm.
this guy. So I really got a sense of the oppressive nature of the thing he's under. I really got a sense of how much it cost him to sort of go up against Osira and this huge sort of crime syndicate, basically, and try and topple that, and how it failed and how much it cost him. And I also got sort of a sense of like, what his role was on in the chain as well, and sort of why he knew this information that he did. So it was really helpful. And then sort of a lot of that just kind of was like, we don't really need all that. We don't need to like have these big exposition moments, and I can just kind of play, how these things have affected him.
And what tack are you taking there? Is there a certain thing in your mind when you go into each episode?
Yeah, I'm trying to have him fit in the world. I don't want him to stand out and I don't want him to disappear into the background. I think you're really trying to fit him into a Star Trek a universe. So it's somebody who has a lot of is more than one thing. It's happiness, it's sadness, it's conflict. There's a lot of internal conflict over things that have happened. And then it's also I think in 308, which was so fun, is you just get a glimpse of like his impression of what the Federation is. And it
Hmm.
really speaks a lot to like how this universe views the Federation almost as like this type of boogeyman, and just maybe this sort of propaganda campaign against the Federation. And so I think it just was really fun to get to just like touch on that and bring that to the front.
It's amazing that you're saying that because I have felt throughout this whole season that season three specifically is almost a metaphor for the Star Trek fandom taking the journey it's had over the past 20 years.
That's interesting.
And if I can elaborate just for the people who might be wondering what the heck I'm talking about, I mean, we left the Star Trek universe broadly at the end of Enterprise, which was 12 years before Discovery started.
Mhm.
And there were a couple of JJ movies in between, but by and large, the fandom was like, is it over? Is
Yeah.
it done?
I
And
mean, I
then,
was right there with you. That's what I felt. I remember I had a conversation with my mom after Enterprise, and she's like, it's over. That's it. It sort of ended on such, I love Enterprise, but I think everybody can sort of agree it sort of ended in this like, how do you recover from that? It just
Mhm.
really felt like we just are done. We just have nothing left. There's nowhere left to go. So yeah, I get that. So go ahead, keep
No,
going, keep
please.
going.
And then we had Discovery, and it came back, and it was great. But we're now so far in the future, and TV has changed so much, and
Yes,
storytelling has changed so much, and
yes.
we're looking at this, and we're like the crew of the Discovery looking at the 29th century, saying, "I don't recognize what's around me. Like,
Yeah.
is this a bad thing or a good thing? I don't know."
I love that. I think that's really astute and a really, really good point, because I've gone back and recently, and when I was preparing for the role, watched a ton of Enterprise, and it's just so clear, Enterprise, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and Next Generation, especially Next Generation, are such a product of the time, you know, and so there's no way a show like Enterprise or Deep Space Nine could happen in 2020 or 2017. It's
Mhm.
just not possible. Especially, it's not just the TV medium, how much it's changed with sort of prestige TV and like the continuing storylines of television that you can do when you're on a streaming platform and it's not sort of a prime time one-off. But also the demands that are made of a property from a larger corporation, sort of in the same way, Disney needs Marvel and Star Wars to do certain things. And CBS, Paramount, Viacom, CBS needs Star Trek to do certain things. So, what I think Alex Kurtzman has done so well, and I think really deserves a huge, huge amount of credit for. And I think his sort of time will come when he's sort of put up there with guys like Ron Moore, all these guys who are stewards of the franchise, is negotiate the relationship between CBS and between the fan base and between what is called for from a modern prestige television show. And I think what you're talking about is sort of like we're in this new world and we don't know what to think about it. We don't know what's up or what's down or what's left or what's right is really astute. And I think it's in a way it really puts the characters, their journey really close to the fan base journey in a very fun way. So
Mhm.
I really love that. I think that's really spot on.
Well, thanks. I don't know if that's intentional in the minds of the writers, but to me, it's so blatant it has to be said.
Well, yeah, if it's not intentional, I'll mention it to them and they can take credit for it.
Well, that's fine by me. I have no pride, as anybody who knows me is aware. But yeah, and it's odd to me seeing the people now. And hey, if you don't like anything, in my mind, that's your right. I will never argue the point. But to me, it's just so strange. Anybody who's saying that Enterprise was the good old days, or Voyager was the good old days, or DS,
Yes.
because I remember those days, and I remember people complaining so loudly about the things that they're now clutching their pearls and saying we're what we need back. I'm like,
Yes.
what?
It's really an interesting thing. Look, I mean, fandom is fandom,
Mhm.
and I think there's sort of two things. There's sort of a level of fandom that is uh aggressive and uncalled for and extremely kind of like horrible. You know what I mean? And we see that in a lot of fandoms. We especially saw that in Star Wars with the new movies. And
Mhm.
it's like there's no place for that. That doesn't even really deserve addressing because it's wrong.
Mhm.
But there is, a level of fandom where Discovery's just not it for them. And that's okay, That's okay. There's 500 hours, 500 episodes of Star Trek for you to watch and enjoy, and those still exist, and you get to own those. But at the same time, I do really think people have some rose-colored glasses when they look back, especially on early seasons of The Next Generation, especially on certain episodes of Enterprise, a lot of Voyager, and some Deep Space Nine, where it's like, guys, like these episodes really suck. Like, and I mean that, and I say that with love. You know
No,
what I
no, I
mean? Like,
get it.
I say that with love, and I think anybody would be like, yeah, we didn't totally nail it there. So, I think fans want something like this to come out of the box fully formed,
Mhm.
completely ready to go, and it's just really, really difficult to do. And I think that just like every iteration of Star Trek, this show is continuing to find its voice, to find its rhythm, to find its style, and I think it's really starting to settle in. And for people who have stuck with it or coming to it, encountering it for the first time, I think it's really paying off. And I think it's also paying off because it's able to bring in new fans and more fans and younger fans. And I think that's so smart and so important, because if, a show like Discovery is so limited that it can't bring in anybody new, it can't bring in younger people who don't have a relationship to Spock. A younger person born in 2001 who comes to the show because of Blue and Ian or because of the Nickelodeon show, they may know who Spock is, but they're not going to be like, oh my God, it's Spock, it's Reunification Part 3, and if those people aren't coming to the show, then Star Trek will die again in 20 years because there will be no fans left to give a crap about it, So I think it's done a really masterful job in reaching the fans who are there for it, and also reaching new fans, which is very, very important.
It is important, and I think a lot of people lose sight of that. A lot of people want it to be their own personal plaything, and it doesn't work that way. I'm sorry.
Yes.
And that's why I love sitting down and talking with somebody like yourself, who actually, it's literally your job to make it, and you can't go to every Jeremy and say, what do you want me to do today? And Jeremy is my generic term for any entitled fanboy. So.
And like I think that the show has done a lot of work and works really hard to acknowledge like the current events, with the Voyager, with Nog, with the Yelchin, like they're a part of the community, they're saying like, look, we hear you guys, we know what's going on. We are not trying to make a show that is just for us, or that we like put our stamp on Star Trek and say, screw all that. We're here and we're trying to work with you guys. We're a part of this community,
And that's absolutely right, and I love it. I really do. When you're actually putting yourself into this, when you're getting into it, you're going in as a fan, a longtime fan, and that's why I love following your Twitter. I saw you pop up about a month ago, and like I followed this guy, and I will put your Twitter in the show notes because you're that much fun to follow. But what's it like to grab hold of it as a fan?
God, that's such a great question. I feel like part of the experience of a Star Trek fan is imagining yourself on the ship, and not as the hero captain. You don't imagine maybe you do, a little bit, but people can imagine themselves as the science officer or in engineering, kind of as a piece of the whole, I think that's what's so amazing about Star Trek is all the characters feel like, they're indispensable. They make up the larger thing. And with that comes this sort of, dream of being on the ship, of being there and doing it, and also being with the cast. We all know all the cast stories. We all have gone to conventions and heard the same story twice and laughed just as hard both times. It's part of being part of the family and part of the community. And there was a real concern where I'm going to go on set and it's going to suck. What a letdown, where it's like nobody really cares. Nobody's like excited, and the sets are just like flimsy cardboard and I can, put my hand through them if I lean over. But it was the exact opposite. It was going on the set and walking through the hallways of Discovery and getting lost, having no idea how I wound up in sick bay, and I have no idea how to get back to where they're shooting. It's like on the other side of the ship. It's the level of detail and thought that goes into the costumes and the prosthetics and the props. Everyone is so excited about the things that they're making, and they're excited because they're artists and they love to do it, but they're also excited because they know that they're adding something to the Star Trek universe. Every time there's a new prop, the prop guy is just like, you have to check this out. You have to press the buttons. This is so cool. I can't believe it gets to be part of Star Trek, and And I just think as a fan, coming in and seeing everyone's level of dedication, everyone is working so hard, everyone is so excited to be making Star Trek. It really was just such a gratifying experience. And part of my thing on Twitter is just like, I want to pass as little as just a tiny piece of that experience to everybody else, to like be able to share in that, because I found it so personally gratifying, so rewarding, and so special that I kind of want to like say to everyone, like, it is as good as you imagine. You were right to keep imagining this. It is amazing.
And that's, again, an amazing thing you can mention, because Discovery is, in my mind, the one Star Trek where they really hammered it home that it is not about a singular captain. It's about the whole ship, the whole crew. So, I mean, you can go in there with your character and be just as much of the story as Saru or Michael or Tilly, because they're not focused. I mean, we have like what, 4 different captains in 3 seasons at this point?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, it was intense to break the mold like that, because you're so used to having the sort of, here's the captain and everything's laid out. But I also think it was really smart, because like the reality is these things are complicated, they do change. And I think, especially in our sort of 2020 world, everything is always in flux, everything is always changing. And so much of it is people, giving and helping, so when somebody new steps up, when Tilly gets promoted, it's not about, oh, does she deserve it or whatever. It's about everybody just stepping up to the plate, which I think is such an amazing message of, support, of community, of really showing up for people, and also believing in the person. Not saying, well, I don't know if you can do it. I think you can, you have to prove it to me. It's like, I know you, I believe in you, and I'm here to support you. And I just think that's so awesome.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, going back to there have been a couple cases. Like I remember that Voyager had the Equinox, and TOS had a couple rogue captains where, the captain who was supposed to be the shining example of Federation ideals goes bad and takes the whole crew down with them. And you always wonder, what happened to those ships? Well, now now you get us behind the scenes almost.
That's great. Yeah, that's definitely great. And you kind of get the example of what happens when there is that power vacuum, but people step up to the plate in a good way, which I think is awesome as well.
Absolutely. And I said, Tilly getting promoted, when you're wondering, can she do it? And, I can't lie, those thoughts went through my head too. But then I'm realizing I had the same thoughts when, the Chris Pine version of Kirk got the ship right away, right out of the academy. And I'm like, not sure about this, but let's see where it goes.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the journey, is Tilly's not sure about it. That's sort of part of her journey too, So I think that's good. And it also, as opposed to like, I'm not sure about this and something's going to go wrong and she's going to fail and everything sucks. It is this thing of like, we're not sure about it, but she really shows up and she really grows into the role. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's just a really, really cool thing to see for everybody who that's happened to.
Another way that Discovery's broken the mold in a good way is to not be afraid to show failures. Personal failures, systemic failures. That's always been something that Star Trek shied away from, because we have the great Gene Roddenberry ideal.
Right.
Yeah, but we have humans too.
Yeah, I think a lot of especially early Discovery, it's sort of centered on the wrong decisions that Michael makes. And I think that's such an interesting and difficult thing to grapple with and to watch how she kind of comes back from it. I don't know, there is something very human that I can certainly relate to about having a huge portion of your life defined by making a wrong decision, and how to keep going after that. So I just thought it was really interesting and really impactful for me.
You need to be able to see that. It's a better way of seeing yourself in the characters than always having the characters who can do no wrong. Mm-hmm. Who they're wearing the right badge, so therefore they've got the right ideas. And I mean, I know what they're going for, but it's sometimes very hard to look at Picard and Kirk and say, yeah, that can be me on the screen. That I know what they're going through.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is it easier to look at a script and then just say, okay, I know where to take this?
You know, it's such a cool thing having worked on having watched and thought about Star Trek so much that there is really something about knowing the genre, and knowing how much fun it can hold, So with something like the Grudge bit, not feeling like I had to play it overly serious or kind of small or, in a way that couldn't be fun. I think knowing Star Trek so well and knowing how much room there is for fun in Star Trek is really freeing. And it also is able, I think it can just hold so much range. So you have, one moment of fun and another moment of contemplation and another moment of seriousness. I think knowing that allows you to really bring a lot to the work.
Yeah, and Grudge being another fantastic addition that you just it's out of left field. You didn't even know where it was. And I mean, by the time somebody gets this, it'll come out today, but it may be months or years down the road. It might be just part of Star Trek at this point. But
yeah,
a week or so before season 3 of Discovery started, you just saw this picture of a cat on Twitter. and you had no idea what it was or where it was going, but it's like there's a new cat on Star Trek. I'm like, okay.
It's a long line of Star Trek pets. There is a very, very long line of wonderful Star Trek pets, and I think Grudge is an admirable addition to that.
I would agree with that. I mean, just the fact that everybody in their own life. I mean, if you're a pet person, if you're going to space, you're taking your pet. They can probably adapt better than you can.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I always kind of wondered why dogs weren't more popular, but then you think lately they've shown that every captain except for Sisko had a dog.
Exactly.
Okay, so when you're looking, you're going to conventions now. I saw, by the way, that the folks at WhedonCon just booked you.
Oh yeah, did they release that? I haven't actually seen that.
Yesterday.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, well, right now things are a little strange with COVID, so it'll be a virtual convention, but I'm super, super excited. I feel like sort of the last, the way to close the full circle of the sort of Star Trek fan actor experience will be doing an in-person convention, to get to sit on the other side of the table when I've been on the other side so many times and get to meet so many people and really share in that sort of like fan experience of getting to meet somebody and then sort of look over, and I'll sort of do that thing where I'm like, oh my God, like, do you see that person over there? Are you seeing this? I don't, being like sort of in between the both worlds. I'm just so looking forward to it. And I've been really lucky with the interactions I've sort of had on Twitter. The community there has just been so amazing and so supportive and so excited, and the internet can be a very bad place. So I feel very lucky to have not sort of tapped into the darkness at all. And it just makes me really excited to meet the fans because I share so much of that experience that I really just want to keep being a part of it,
You're going to love it. I've worked several cons. I can't wait to see you actually get into an in-person con.
I can't wait.
I mean, it's number one, when people are coming up to you and just saying they like what you do and they're glad you do it and you can make money doing that, that's a pretty good way to spend a day.
Exactly.
And unlike the people in line, you always have a place to sit down.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
Great...
Right. I'll get to be next to all these people who I would pay money to meet anyway, and I get to sit down.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Okay. So, do you have any in-person cons, even theoretically scheduled, like STLB, Dragon Con?
Nothing yet. It's still very, very early stages. It's only been a month, so I'm just trying to take it day by day and enjoy every interaction that I have, enjoy every picture I get to share, just really soak it in. It's such a unique experience. It's such a special and lucky experience that when and if the cons come, I will be there. I will be soaking that in. And if they don't, that's okay too. I will be soaking everything else in as well and just really, really being appreciative of this experience.
I think that's an amazing attitude to have. I mean, you're talking about something we embrace here, gratitude. It's the difference between hope and despair sometimes.
Definitely.
I mean, the situation we're in now, it's unique. I don't believe it's permanent, but it is definitely long lasting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see sort of the post-COVID convention scene, what that is like. I can't even begin to imagine, I'm not nearly smart enough or tapped in enough to to know anything at all. So I'm just going to enjoy what I've got while I got it,
Yeah. Trust in the experts and hoping for the best.
Exactly.
So do you have any other creative plans besides Star Trek?
Well, at the moment, I just sort of am like coming to the end of a fundraising campaign that I sort of put out on Twitter for Type 1 International, which is an advocacy organization that works to provide insulin access and affordability for people both in the United States and all over the world. It's an amazing organization, and the funds that are raised are really important to it because it doesn't take pharmaceutical money, so that way it's not influenced by those corporations. So every dollar, every dime that they get really makes a huge difference on what they're able to do. And I've been chatting with them, and I know that the support that they received through me and through the Star Trek community, they've really appreciated and has made a massive difference for them. So I'm just sort of soaking that in, and I'm so appreciative. And on one level, not surprised by the outpouring of support that I've seen from the Star Trek community, but on the other level, absolutely blown away and just so appreciative and filled with, it's just all the good stuff that the Star Trek community has to offer, and having people show up like that has really meant a lot to me personally. And the other thing that's sort of in the works is, we've been me and the Star Trek Discovery cast have been playing a little Dungeons and Dragons. So we're hoping to kind of get a sort of possibly a charity one shot or some sort of charity thing going, probably for a different charity, TBD, but just keep an eye out for that, because that will probably be a really fun event that I'm very excited and very nervous for.
I'm so glad you brought up both of those aspects. Thank you so much, because I saw your campaign for Type 1, and I just thought, man, I really hope we can get that in here, because I really like to talk about people who use any level of fame they have to do as much good as they can while they can do it. So what's your window of opportunity? How can we help out as best as we can?
Currently it's just like an open campaign. There was like a big push, but if you hear this and you feel inspired and want to donate, you could definitely find it on my Twitter. And if that is closed, if you go there, there's nothing to donate. Even following and sharing Type 1 International or the Diabetes Mutual Aid that I linked to in the kind of longer thread, they're really small organizations, so being able to give them some visibility both allows them to reach out to a bigger community, but it also allows diabetics who maybe haven't heard of them to either get involved or receive aid. So anything you can do to share or like or follow, on this level, anything makes such a huge difference. So that's what you could do, and it just means a ton to me.
So I've got $1 in my wallet right now. I pull it out, I send it over. What is it most likely that dollar is going to go to?
Basically, it's a total, volunteer-run, shoestring-run organization that's all about advocacy. So, it could go to upkeep of the website so that people can come and find information. It could go to, paying lawyer fees or, filing fees as they're trying to change laws in I think 37 of the 50 states right now. It could go to organization fees so that they could help organize protests or demonstrations or information sessions for people. They've just been so instrumental in getting things passed, like Alex Smith's law, which allows diabetics to fill insulin from a pharmacy if they're in desperate need, which pharmaceutical companies have really fought to block. And when you're going up against a corporation like Lilly or these other ones which have huge budgets for this kind of lobbying, everything that you can contribute, both financially, both with time, and both with visibility, just really makes a huge difference for them.
And this is, I mean, lawyer fees and website fees might not sound like a big deal, but for somebody like me who doesn't have diabetes, might not realize that insulin is usually a very easy thing. It's not super expensive in the grand scheme of things, but there are so many rules preventing people who need it from getting it.
And you know, in the cost of insulin in the past 10 years has risen 250%, which is completely a price gouge. You know, there's no reason. The formula has not changed. No. So, you know, to push back against that makes a huge difference. And these are really, you know, life-saving medications. Type 1 diabetics cannot live without this kind of medication. And I also think, you know, for those of you who, those of us who aren't, you know, type 1 diabetic, anytime a disability organization is able to make strides forward in affordability, in recognition, in laws, it affects the whole disability community. So I like to think, you know, maybe you're not affected by this, but it moves the disability conversation forward in a way that, you know, if another disability community, whether it's autism or even, you know, cancer research or cancer support, you know, moving those things forward, move me forward as well. So I think it's part of the larger conversation as well.
It really is. We're talking about something that like we just said, the price has gone up, but the cost hasn't gone up. So obviously there's some shenanigans going on there that where it's coming from is a whole other conversation. But you're talking about something that people need to live just as much as they need food and water. And there's somebody out there doing as much as they can to make it more difficult. That's not right.
Yeah. So hopefully, you know, it's these organizations that are really making a difference for the people who are rationing insulin, for the people who can't afford it, for the people who are deciding between groceries and insulin. So, you know, it's they're not as high powered as other larger corporations, but the ability to not sort of be influenced by really big money is what allows them to really make a huge difference.
Yeah, I strongly advocate anybody who would like to look into this, go ahead to my website, aaronbossig.com, because I'm going to have the links to everything Noah just mentioned on there. So whether you're getting this today or 3 years from now, it's still going to be there, and I strongly encourage you to take a look at it.
Well, thank you so much, Aaron. I really appreciate that.
No, this is probably a good time for me to put down anything else that I could recommend people follow, your Twitter account, your social media info.
Yeah, you know, follow me on Twitter. That's where I do kind of most of my my social media stuff, mainly because I can interact so much more directly and with the fans and have real conversations and have fun. So find me at N_A_K and say hi.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to do that. You know, I'm already there. So I'm going to let you go for now, but I would definitely like to have you back again sometime real soon, because this has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Well, just reach out, and I really appreciate you having me on. Thanks for talking with me today.
Anytime, buddy.
All right. Thank you.